Welcome to World's Awakening. We have Tracy Fance, a clairvoyant medium, psychic, intuitive tarot reader that offers guidance for loved ones and spirits and people in their lives. Tracy also works as past life regression hypnosis and works as an event organiser and Reiki Healer. Tracy, welcome to the show.
Hi there.
And how are you doing today?
Yeah, really good, thanks, yeah.
Excellent. We thought we've just had a bit of a discussion. We thought a bit what we could talk about today is understanding. A lot of understanding that needs to be given to people, and education is what you're working on at the moment, as to how readings actually work, about how spiritual readings actually work, and how spirit actually can interact with us, either as mediums or as intuitives, and also about the recent energy shifts that have been happening that has also come up in conversation. I understand that you've got a day coming up in Ashford in Kent in June, is that right?
Yeah, we've got a day of talks on the 26th of June at the Holiday Inn near Ashford. And we've got a day of talks where you can come along and find out about all different aspects of the spiritual world. And it is a major subject, so we're not going to be able to cover everything, but we do plan on running a few of these. So the idea is that, you know, we'll have different talks each time and people can kind of come along and find out more.
Excellent. And whereabouts will that be?
It's at the Holiday Inn, which is on the A20 Maidstone Road at Hothfield, which is just outside Ashford.
Excellent. And I know there's going to be a few subjects to discuss there. I know you're doing a demonstration of mediumship and a Q&A, and you've also got a couple of people talking about the energy shift that's been happening since 2012, and right. You've got an aura reader there as well, is that right?
Yeah, we've got 4 talks for the day, so you're going to have myself doing a demonstration of mediumship, but it will have a question and answer session built in, and sometimes it ends up being all question and answer and not a great deal of demonstration, but I leave it to the audience to dictate what they need. It really works well because sometimes the way that I give a message actually triggers the questions, and sometimes the question triggers the reading, so it's really powerful stuff.
Excellent.
We've also got Unique Soul Healing, who are a mother and daughter team, and they're going to be talking about the Ascension and what it means to us as individuals, because although it happened back in 2012 and everyone thinks it's done and dusted, actually it's still going on. We've also got Chris Wally, who's from Decisive Coaching, and he's doing a talk on how to change your mind and how to change your life as a result of that, and that's going to be really powerful because so many people at the minute feel stuck in their lives or aren't happy, and they need the tools to be able to change it. And then Jill is the lady that you were talking about with the auras. Jill Larkin draws people's auras and then interprets it and then tells you what the colours mean in a general way. So although she will pick on people in the audience, it's also relevant to the whole audience.
Well, it's funny how a lot of those talks you got sort of 2 sets of talks each that I assume it's the same throughout the 4 of them, but they really seem to complement each other, because I find it's partly because of this shift or this awakening then that people are feeling quite stuck in their lives, because there's more information, there's more ethos, there's more information coming into their decoding, I suppose, or coming into their awareness. And a lot of people don't actually know what to do with it or how to respond to it, and even don't even know what's going on. They just kind of tend to feel that, to them it's a feeling of being stuck, or a feeling of things just literally getting from bad to worse. Has that been your experience as well?
Yes, everyone knew about the end of the Mayan calendar in 2012, and then that came and went, and everyone kind of thinks that was the be-all and end-all, but it's still having an effect. And if you look at what's going on in the world around us, look at all the war that's going on, the amount of famous people who are dying and returning back to spirit, the upheaval, there's so much going on, and we're still in a period of transition, because as we transition through the planet that we're on and what's going on around us is changing to make way. It's like the changing of the seasons. You don't just wake up one day and it's winter. You kind of transition from autumn into winter, and that's basically what we're doing. We're transitioning from before the Mayan calendar in 2012 to the age of Aquarius, and you're going to see a really big shift in what's going on.
And that will have an effect essentially on all levels of people's lives. So it doesn't matter who you are. No one really is going to be exempt from this, or no one's going to be really feeling the everyone in their own way is going to be feeling the brunt of it. I feel, and what you're also seeing is like a breaking down of old ways of thinking, old ways of being, old systems breaking down, and there's definitely a healing going on. That's what I have found as well. Is like a personal healing going on, but it's also like translating into a societal healing going on as well.
Very much so.
How are you finding this on your clairvoyant side? How are you finding this with people coming to you for readings and the way of what they're expecting from you and that sort of thing? You said to me earlier that you were very passionate about people getting the best from their readings, but actually understanding what they're actually going for in the first place.
Yeah, I'm seeing an awful lot of people who are ready to step into their psychic and spiritual side. There's a lot of people who are finding that they're being drawn towards more light working work, and it kind of hit me as a bolt from the blue that everybody is here to be a light worker, but more and more people are waking up and realizing that that's where they want to be. And it doesn't matter whether they're working as a counsellor, a barmaid, a teacher, but they're just becoming more aware of others and less self-aware. Because I feel like for a long time, everybody's been so wrapped up in themselves, we've kind of forgotten our fellow man. I'm also finding that there's a lot more spiritual activity going on. So a lot of people are noticing things in their houses. So you're probably finding you're doing more house clearances than you were. Just finding that people are taking a long, hard look at their life and suddenly going, actually, this isn't what I want, even though it's suited them for years. So, it's affecting people on every level.
What's their perception then when they come and visit you? What's their perception of what they expect to get out from a session with you, and how people react once they have a reading? Is it what they expect, or is it what they were looking for, or are they looking for something more, or how do you find that then?
I find that every person is different, so I couldn't say, the majority are this, that, or the other, because I don't feel that. I am finding that some people don't really come with any expectations; they're just really open, and then other people have got almost this expectation that we're going to deliver every single answer. And one of the top questions is, what's my life purpose, what's my soul purpose? And that's something we have to discover for ourselves. If I tell you what the problems are in your life and tell you what your soul purpose is and what you're meant to be doing, that kind of negates it. The whole point is that you have to discover that lesson for yourself. So I feel that I'm more here to kind of reveal the answers to you and help you work out for yourself what your life purpose or soul purpose is. I often find that people just expect that whoever it is they want to hear from is going to be there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they died 2 days ago, 2 years ago, or 20 years ago, and they don't always understand why that person doesn't come through. So, I will always say to someone, look, if there's anyone in particular that you want, I can't guarantee that I am going to be able to connect with them, because it doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. But if you've got a photograph or a first name, I will work from that. And 9 times out of 10, touch wood, I do connect with that person from the first name or the photograph. But I have had a lady who really slated me because she said, I've never had somebody ask me for the name of the deceased person. That's your job to give me that. Well, I don't get names generally, so that's never going to happen. But I'd already explained to her that the name is the vibrational link. Do you remember the story about Rumpelstiltskin?
Yeah.
Okay, the reason he wouldn't reveal his name is that our name is so powerful. It has a vibration that is so unique, and that's why witches and warlocks have like their own given name, and then they have a name that they use as a pseudonym, because if somebody has your name, that is incredibly powerful. And so when you're working with spirit, using their first name to pull in that link is incredibly powerful. So, I can sometimes get the link just from the first name, even if I didn't feel them around me to begin with. But people need to realize that, that isn't something that all readers do. It isn't something that I would even guarantee that I would get that person. It is just an additional tool. So, sometimes people compare readers, but they don't understand that if they compared you and I, we're like chalk and cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're two different readers, we work two different ways.
How did you get into this, and what was your personal journey of exploring this?
Okay. I'm not one of those people that spent my whole life walking around talking to dead people. I'd love to have been. Unfortunately, I wasn't. I do remember looking back that there were things that happened when I was a kid that I didn't understand, so I put it down to night terrors and bad dreams and stuff like that, and now I realise that it was spirit contact. I spent all my life thinking it would just be totally cool to be psychic, and people kept telling me we're all psychic, so go away. I kept a passion for all things spiritual and psychic, so when everyone else was reading Janet and John and the Mr. Men, I was reading books on reincarnation and past lives and everything else. And in my 20s, I moved to Herne Bay, where I live now, and I joined a development circle, and I just kept wanting to have confidence that what I was getting was right, what I was doing was not just my imagination. And I kept it as my hobby, and then about 7 years ago my financial services business hit the rocks just after the Northern Rock fiasco, and I wanted to get out of it anyway, and I was like, flipping out, what am I going to do instead? So I was just doing whatever work was around to pay the bills, and a friend of mine at lunch said, why don't you get on the tarot lines? And I'm thinking, yeah, they're full of charlatans, I don't want to do that. But actually I've found out since that it's damn hard work on those phones. You have to be good to be on those phones.
I do. I actually I've worked those lines myself, and I find I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with them, because I find a lot of the way they portray psychics and the way that they portray how it works, to me, is a large part of the issue, because these companies have a lot more finances behind them to get their message out than we have, and I find that a lot of the time they get the wrong message out, and because they charge the earth, people don't want to hear your explanation. They want what they are phoning for because they've paid that much money. Did you find the same thing, or did you have a different experience?
No, I found the same thing at the time, because I took my friend's advice, and I came home and there was a letter on the doormat from one of the telephone lines, and I've never rung those people, so there was no reason for me to have junk mail from them. And I thought, well, that's got to be a sign from spirit. So I rang up, got the job, got the interview, got the job, away I went. And at the time I was also selling readings on eBay, and I hadn't got any private clients, and I found that there was a distinct energy to the eBay clients and a distinct energy to the ones on the phones. Yes. And because you're on a shift and you might work like every day 10 till 4, you can quite often get the same people calling back, can't you?
Yes.
So I found that sometimes, like every day, I'd speak to the same person, and I felt like saying, well, did you not like me answer yesterday? Do you want me to tell you something different?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's very needy on the telephone lines, and there are people that are addicted. And, I think the funniest one, but to me that's how sad it is with the phone lines, this lady had rung me, and she wanted to know if the letter that she'd posted to her brother in Wales had made it there, because she hadn't heard from him.
Yeah.
And I said, well, look, why don't you just ring him and ask him? Oh, I can't afford to do that. And I'm like, right, but you're ringing me at £1.77 a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, if your brother's got the letter. And I told my partner about it, went, that's outrageous. That's really just taking advantage of the people that are vulnerable. And I felt really bad about it. So I didn't enjoy working the telephone lines. That being said, I did have some fantastic clients that really took notice and really went away and empowered themselves. But I do feel with the telephone lines, a lot of the time, people are not being empowered. They're just basically being fleeced. And that doesn't sit well with me.
No, it doesn't sit well with me. I'm very much in that position now. I've worked as a reader for about 3 years. Initially sort of started with a little bit of success, and then found that after a while, due to several things happening to me personally, it kind of went down the plug hole for one reason or another. I keep being pushed in that sort of general direction, and I fail to understand it, because you tend to find sometimes when you're on this journey is that they'll close all the other doors, and it's like going through a maze, and that is the only sort of door left open, apart from a few other things of how you can actually work with your gifts. So looking back in hindsight, how do you feel that was affected you, or how do you feel that kind of factored into where you are now?
Very heavily, actually, because sometimes the phones are so busy that it is literally put the phone down, pick up the next one, put it down, it rings, you pick it up, and it's like one after the other, and it's really hard to just cut yourself off from the energy of the last caller and hit into the energy of the new caller. And what I found was that eventually I started doing more and more face-to-face readings, and I moved away from the phone readings. eBay stopped allowing us to sell readings on there a few years ago, so that would be about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So again, that went out the window, and so predominantly I was doing face-to-face readings. But I do sell a lot of private readings that are phone or Skype readings, and they have a very different energy, again, in comparison to eBay or the phone lines. So, it has helped me a lot. It gave me a lot more confidence and belief in my abilities. It's not something I would want to go back to. I don't like the energy, but it was very, very helpful, and I learned a lot from it. But it can also destroy your confidence, because people put the phone down mid-call and you're like, oh my God, was that because I was rubbish? And then you find out it's because somebody walked in and they didn't want to let on they were having a reading, so they just put the phone down.
Yeah. You also tend to find as well that you kind of have to have a thick skin, and you kind of have to not so much laugh it off, but you can't take it personally, because one of the things that I've learned from doing it is you just have to have confidence in giving what you're given. If the person doesn't understand it, there's multiple reasons why, and that's not blaming that person. That's basically saying that perhaps they don't understand it just yet, but once that information is digested, they will start to understand it. Perhaps they're not meant to understand it at this sort of point in time, or this at this juncture, or it could even be the fact that they've had so many readings that the information is just generally getting confused, because one person's told them one thing, another person's told them another thing, and you're picking up on that confused energy. So it's very much unhealthy, I find, for them to have that consistent amount of readings. This is where a lot of people, when I've tried for interviews, the one I'm with now, I'm not going to mention it now because we're on an interview, but the one I work with now, they tend to be a little bit more supportive in that sort of respect. They tend to be a lot more aware that people can have problems with it, and they don't. But I've worked with some others, and they're like, you want your customers to keep coming back to you, and like, well, actually no, I've always worked on the precedent of that if you've had a reading from me, I don't need to see you for another couple of months, really, unless something drastic happens. Well, what I'd really like to see is that you took on, you were empowered by that reading and perhaps wanted to explore something else. Perhaps you want to explore feeling that energy for yourself, or explore that for yourself, because there's only so much that I can sort of give you, or I can tell you. I find that with my own loved ones in spirit, I do have a continuing relationship with them, and I would like for everyone to have that, because I think it would change a lot about how we feel about death. So when did it come to the point then where you felt that you needed to be doing more Q&As with people, that people needed more understanding then?
That's quite a recent development. We did some talks, where are we now, March, so it must have been March 7th, I think March 17th we did some talks, and it went down really well, but I think this shift has been coming into my evenings of clairvoyance anyway, because I know that sometimes I end up throwing little snippets of education in there, so I think it's been creeping up on me. I've started a networking group for the health and well-being people,
And with a few of those, I've kind of started to look at doing talks and going into the direction of more workshops and things. So there's lots of little things that have come along to kind of push me in a particular direction. So I kind of feel this is where I'm meant to go. And it may even be that I won't do my evenings of clairvoyance. I'll just do the Q&As and some other talks. So, you know, there's quite a change going on around me, which obviously is part of the Ascension shift.
Are you also seeing that with a lot of with other people that work in the same sort of field, whether they work as healers or whether they work as you know, just general sort of people that are working in this field then?
Yeah, some of the people that I'm doing talks with, you know, they're also finding that their lives are going through transformations and that they're moving away from the way that they've worked for years. And I know that the ladies from Unique Soul Healing, for instance, myself and both of them used to do a lot of mind, body, spirit affairs. So we were like out virtually every weekend doing the psychic fairs and the mind, body, spirit events. And I think I've only done 3 this year because I've been so busy with other stuff, and they're finding the same thing. They're moving away from the mind, body, spirit fairs and doing their own thing.
My partner works is an empath. We both sort of, well, we started off working in this field together. She's now moving more towards a healer, but she's finding as well it's affecting things like the food that she's eating, the things that she enjoys. You know, for some it seems to be having a very profound impact. I've also noticed as well is people who suffer from a lot of illnesses seem to be going through, as if that illness is coming to the surface in some way, that they seem to be going through really hard times with that illness. Are you seeing something of the same phenomena?
I am, and I'm finding that a lot of illnesses, although they are, you know, proper, you know, they're proper recognised illnesses, I'm also finding there's a lot of alternative remedies that are coming to the fore, and I'm finding that a lot more health and well-being is creeping into the mix that is in my life. And I'm finding that people are seeking other ways of healing rather than just traditionally through the NHS. They're still doing the NHS, but I think the internet's bringing a lot of information to the fore, like cancer, for instance, and showing us that actually there's an awful lot going on that we don't know about with cancer, and that actually it doesn't always require chemo. There's other ways around it. So, you know, I'm seeing a shift with the way that people approach their illnesses. I'm seeing a change with the way that people deal with it, and just generally their mindset. They're not prepared to just go, oh, well, I've been diagnosed, so I'll put up with it.
Because I feel that you tend to find as well the way people actually approaching everything from politics to not going to get into politics, but like just from politics to, you know, how they approach just general how they are in their community, the way of looking at things, the fact that people can interact more with each other, and I find that as well. I find that a lot of the sort of tools that we are using now are not really what they were originally set up for, and I think sometimes the developers behind such tools are scratching their heads and thinking this is not what I designed it for, because it might be affecting some of their interests. And I feel, where do you feel this is leading? And when do you feel personally? I've got my own thoughts, but I'm interested to see if you had any thoughts on it. When do you feel this transition will actually start to take effect?
Well, it's been taking effect for quite a while, but it's a bit like, you know, every time a layer comes to the surface, you have to then give it breathing space before the next layer comes to the surface. And what I feel is happening is that the spiritual world is trying to make us as humans more accountable, more empowered, trying to make us take ownership for the things that go on around us, rather than feeling we're the victim and at the mercy of whatever's going on. So I kind of feel that this is about us taking control of our lives and being more spiritually aware, more self-aware, and less kind of being told what to do by the doctors and the medical profession and other figures in authority, because they don't know everything.
And a lot of the time, the people that have your best interest at heart is you.
Yeah.
And irregardless of talking about any sort of other sides of the coin, how can one authority figure? And I think that's one of the greatest myths, isn't it? It's like, you vote for the right person, everyone everything gets sorted. And I think that's one of the biggest myths that's being debunked now of our time. And I think it's the fact that it does come down to each and every one of us doing something. And it feels like, because you see a lot of people saying we need to wake up, we need to do something. And I feel I've written quite a bit about this myself, and I feel it's actually understanding the story of your life and understanding what is it that you feel you can contribute, whether that is actually helping people to get information out there, whether that's just doing the things that you're incredibly passionate about, because everyone's passionate about different things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I find that's what's happening as well, is you tend to see that there are, rather than being big organisations and you join a big organisation if you want to do something, like people are starting little things up themselves and actually giving actually contributing in many ways and becoming masters of many trades. Are you finding that yourself?
Yeah, very much so. And I think as people become more understanding of their life and why they are here, and realise that there's more to it, they're starting to ask questions and they're starting to investigate more, and that's really helping to, give them power over their own lives.
So what sort of advice would you give someone that's just starting out working with these energies and wanting to go down this road of working with people, working with spirit then?
Okay. Expect it to be a never-ending journey, because it never ends. It's, you might think that you're just into readings and then auras will crop up, and the next thing you know, you're into crop circles, and, everything just bleeds into everything else. So it's a never-ending journey. You never know it all, because you can't. Always remain teachable, because there's always something new that comes along. There's always a deeper level to be achieved. And just remember, you're the channel. You're nothing special. Anyone can do what we do.
Exactly. I think for a personal point, and this is just kind of what has rung true for me lately, is that even though you might not have an idea of what's going on, and sometimes you might feel a bit lost in it all, is that they actually know exactly what they're doing. And when it does come together, it comes together beautifully.
It's best to just let spirit have their way, because they will win. That's not to say that we can't do what interests us. If you hate healing, they're not going to make you be a healer. But there's many ways to heal. It's not it's not just sticking bandages on people. You can heal just by being a barmaid and listening to people's woes. You can heal just by being a counsellor. There's loads of ways to heal. But the thing to bear in mind is this is a really fun thing to be able to do. It isn't all doom and gloom, and even people who've lost a loved one who are looking for comfort, they would have had fun and laughter with those loved ones when they were here more often than not. So it's okay to have a bit of fun and laughter now, as long as it's respectful.
Yeah, exactly. And do you find that people have that perception when they come to see you?
Not so much, no. I think sometimes they expect their relatives to be exactly the same as they were here on Earth, and quite often when we get over the other side, the more enlightened we are, the more different we are. But you find that we don't have the anger and the spite and the jealousy and the hang-ups that we have when we're here. When we get over there, we kind of see the bigger picture. It would be like your mother going, if you bury me next to your father, I'll come back and haunt you. But actually, when she gets over there, it's like, actually, it doesn't matter. Whatever went on in this life, it's not important. Not in that way.
Well, you also do regression hypnosis, and you also bring people's past lives through in readings as well. How do you find that affects your work with people?
I think being able to find out about past lives is invaluable, because it shows us a lot about this life. And I always remember giving a client Well, it wasn't. It was meant to be hypnotherapy for fear of enclosed spaces, and actually, I ended up regressing him, and we went to a previous life. And when he came back from the hypnosis, he couldn't believe that he'd had this past life experience because he wasn't really into all that. And all of his life, he had bitten his fingernails, like to the point where they would bleed. When he'd had the hypnotherapy, he stopped biting them, and he actually had to get a manicure, which was the first time that had ever happened in his life.
Okay.
Costing him a fortune.
Oh,
but it
bloody
turned
hell.
out that he'd been running away from Oliver Cromwell and his men, and he was in an underground tunnel from a church, and the tunnel collapsed, and he suffocated to death in the earth. So, you know, he'd obviously tried to claw his way out, and, you know, it all linked back to this life. So we weren't expecting that, but he needed to let go of that fear because it wasn't serving anything in this life. And the same way that someone, if they're coming for a reading, sometimes, not always, I will pick up on a past life, but it's only when it's extraneous and they don't need it anymore. I'm not going to get to tell them about past lives that they're yet to connect with and are yet to deal with, because that would be pointless. They haven't learned yet.
I feel that the biggest challenge for me has been is the understanding of self, because with each person that you work with, it brings up unique things about, you know, for me anyway, it brings up unique things for me. Each person I talk to, even sort of like talking to you about all the different things that we've been talking about today, it brings different things up for me, and I find that it's for the reader, it's much about an experience, and for the sitter as well. It's much about the experience of life, whereas we tend to associate it with death.
Yeah, very much so. I find that when I read for people, and you probably find the same thing, I might get 10 readings and there'll be a similarity between all 10 readings. And
Yes.
like, oh, I think that message is for me, and it might be you need more me time, you need to switch off more, you need to go and think things through more. It's like, oh, I think that's for me, okay, big 10-4, you know. So I'm getting a message at the same time as the client is.
It's kind of an exchange, isn't it? As you were saying about about giving an exchange for with each reading, it's an exchange, because a lot of people have the feeling that it's something that's given freely and has to be given freely, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very much so.
And do you find, because I find there's a lot of hang up about that.
Yeah. I've never had a hang up about charging for it, funny enough. I've always been up against those people that feel that I shouldn't charge for it. And my argument is, well, when my mortgage company doesn't expect me to stump up the mortgage every month, I'm quite happy to not charge for what I do.
Exactly.
But I do believe that a lot of people don't value what is given to them freely.
Yeah.
I've been at events where someone's had free readings with all the other readers, and when I said to them, well, you know, how was your reading? They're like, oh, I don't know, I can't remember. So it's like, right, you just wasted all of those people's time and your own then, having readings that you were taking no notice of.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, we do have bills to pay. We live in a material world. But actually, what we're doing is an exchange of energy. So, you know, we give them a reading, they can pay us, or they can give us a massage, or they can read for us, or they can give us healing. But that doesn't pay the bills. So yes, we can barter at times. It doesn't always have to be financial. But, you know, we live in a world where credit cards, debit cards and cash are the way to get around in the world. So you've got no choice really but to take that exchange of energy. And, you know, there's no rule anywhere that says if you've got a gift, you can't charge for people who have the benefit of it. Madonna's a gifted singer. David Beckham's a gifted footballer. You could say that Damien Hirst is a talented artist, you know, but they all charge. So, you know, why is it okay to pay money to go and buy someone's music, but it's not okay to pay to come and have a reading or have healing or something?
And, you know, we all need food to eat. We all need to maintain the water supply, and those things are general human rights that we all need. If we don't have food, we don't survive. But then if people don't have money, they don't get to buy food.
Yeah, but then, you know, if we didn't need currency, if we could survive like we used to in the medieval times, where you would swap a piece of jewellery or you would swap some clothing or some bread, then fine. But they didn't really have mortgage companies and credit cards and, gas and electric companies down their neck going, where's my money this month? So, the world is a different place to what it was back then. And we're in a world where we have to have that exchange that is relevant to the world that we're in.
Where do you, with regards to the Ascension, we've talked about the Ascension symptoms and what people are going through, where do you personally see this going, over the course of the next maybe generation or so? I feel that more and more people are opening up to this, and it is a general shift. You can look at it on all aspects. You go back to the 80s when I was a kid, and people used to say, "Oh, there's no such thing as ghosts," and I don't really hear people say that anymore. There's a general sort of trend, and more people are taking interest from all different angles. Where it's a scientific interest, whether it's a sort of more entertainment interest, where it's a media interest. Where do you see this going?
Well, I agree with you. I think a lot more people are aware of their psychic and spiritual side.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that a lot of people are being drawn to want to work in a more spiritual way. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to be a healer. What I mean by that is that more people want to do heart-centered roles. More people want to do jobs that excite them and make them feel good, rather than, the power-hungry jobs like the stock market and stuff. And I remember reading an article, it's a few years ago though now, and it's probably changed even more dramatically. But at one point, 40% of professional career women who were retiring from like the financial services, stockbroking, all the high-flying marketing jobs, 40% of those leaving those industries were turning to the holistic world.
Wow.
Yeah. So the people that are used to being on 1,500 grand, 200 grand, and they've done an about face and gone and become massage therapists, Reiki masters, you name it.
It's a general trend, is it? Because we talk about this in the spiritual aspect. You can talk about it in people becoming more politically aware. You could talk about it in many aspects of it. But it's as the alchemist used to say, as above, so below. It affects us on a unique and individual level, and that then those trends, for lack of a better word, will affect how society operates. And we can understand the mechanisms of that. And I feel that people getting in touch with their spiritual side or their spiritual roles really has a massive part to play in that. And I feel for people like us, it's actually a huge responsibility for us to actually try and understand ourselves first. And I feel that that's part of my journey, is at the moment just start. I've been doing this both 3-4 years, and I'm only just starting out, really. I've still got another 4, 5, 6 decades of my life left to live. And it's a drive in me to actually understand and becoming much more aware of my emotions and how that's affecting my environment and how that's affecting the way in which I live my life. Do you feel that you went through a similar sort of shift?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I suddenly found that I wasn't very tolerant of people who were moaning about material stuff or going, oh, yeah, I spent ages shopping today. I spent all day going around such and such. And it's like, oh, God, really? I just couldn't connect with that shallowness, and I still can't, because it's not something that really is important in the world that I'm in. It's important to them, and that's fine, but I can't relate to that kind of energy anymore, where their life revolves around clothes shopping and that kind of activity. I'm still very sociable, and I still love hanging out with the people that I get on with, but I don't particularly spend any time hanging out with people that I'm not that interested in, because if I'm not on the same wavelength, then if we're not really connecting, I just don't see the point. I'd rather hang out with the people that I do connect with, so that's changed.
I find that is one of the first sort of starting points that people start to experience when these things start to happen, especially if they've not had I find that a gift tends to activate after a catalytic event. And I feel that it's not so much the gift activates, it's more our awareness of this side of us activates. I feel that we've all, and that's a big, that I kind of realised that literally within sort of the last day or so, looking back on some of the cases that I've worked on as of late, and looking back on some of the people that I've talked to, that was a huge realisation for me, that, it's our awareness of of what's happening that actually causes this activation. It's an activation of our awareness. So one of the first things that we realise is certain friends will start to gravitate away from us, and new people will come in. With regards to the regression, and I know that there's a part of this interview that didn't quite get recorded, and this is why we're doing a bit of a re-record. With regards to soul groups, for example, then have you come across soul groups with regards to your regression work?
Not as such. I find that people, when they're in a regression, will recognise other people around them. So they might look at their mother in the life that they're experiencing and go, "Oh my God, that's my partner now, or my daughter now, or whatever." So that's quite interesting to a lot of people, because it helps to explain the dynamic between the people in their life now. And sometimes, especially with a parent and child, I had one recently, it really helped them to understand why, if they would say black, their child would go, "Brilliant, the answer's white."
Yeah.
And they couldn't understand it. It was almost as though they just had to do the complete opposite of whatever she came up with. And she found it really hard. And actually, it was all about a past life. And that made it so much easier for her to deal with the fact that they had these issues between them.
Do you find that people have a time frame when they come back, or is it different for each individual person?
In terms of readings?
No, I mean in terms of past lives, is there like they stay in spirit for a certain length of time, or do you feel, or has that never really come up?
Okay. As a general rule, we stay in heaven with our soul group until everyone's come back home.
Right.
And we reincarnate. But there are always exceptions, because I've had people who've literally gone back home and then been born almost immediately, because they've needed to come back in a different role with that same person.
I see. Do you have people that kind of, have you ever come across people that have been in spirit for an extraordinary length of time?
I've never come across it yet, but I have had people that have struggled to grab hold of a previous life, which to me just means that it's that far back that it's hazy, they can't remember it.
Excellent. Well, if you want to leave us a comment below, Tracy's website is www.tracyfance.com. You're also on YouTube, which is youtube.com/Tracy Fance Clairvoyant Medium. You're also on Twitter. What was your Twitter handle again?
Tarot T, so TAROTTE.
Excellent. And what about on the 26th of June? Now you have this day in Ashford in Kent, isn't that right? Is the tickets from your website?
Yeah, they can get tickets on the website, or they can give me a call.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very, very much for joining us, Tracy. And we'll catch up with you again soon. If you guys want more information about myself or further shows, head to www.spiritualworlds.co.uk or subscribe to this channel for more information. Do you feel you've understood the readings that you've had? Leave us a comment below, and we'll start a little bit of a discussion. And thank you all for joining us for Worlds Awakening.